The premise for this one immediately caught my attention. Mystery the first time you read, horror the second. The blurb tells us that spirit medium Utsugi Yuko left behind one last prophecy before she died. In 20 years' time, 6 people on Mukui Island in the Seto Inland Sea would die. Amamiya Jun then happens to visit the island with a few friends during the night of said prophecy, and the islanders warn them all to stay indoors. If not, the Hikita Onryo will get them. Will they survive the night, or will the prophecy come true? Now, at a glance, that sure sounds interesting, right? It has all the pieces in place for a story I'd love to hear. We have a tiny, isolated island that's far from the mainland that's apparently haunted by an incredibly angry and powerful ghost. We have a prophecy from a psychic who died after visiting the island, claiming that 20 years after her death, 6 people would die there. And then, when a few friends show up for a holiday, they find an island locking itself up and warning them not to go outside. If they do, the Onryo that resides on the nearby mountain will kill them. Like, this is perfect. I can't wait to read this. Sadly, the story did not turn out to be perfect. In fact, I'm going to do my best to keep this from turning into a bitter, salty review, but right off the bat, I'm going to say that I was terribly disappointed, and we'll get into exactly why. We're given this fascinating premise that starts out as a horror mystery, but the more you read, the more the book drags. And the more it drags, the harder it is to keep going. And then after I finally pushed myself through it, taking a good few months to finally force myself through it so I could write the review, we're presented with, honestly, one of the worst endings I've ever seen. Like, it made me angry at how stupid it was. Almost like I was betrayed by this really cool idea actually being something fantastically dumb all along. Alright, first things first, let's dive into the plot of this one. Naturally, this is full of spoilers. If you want to read the book yourself at some point, you can skip this next section. I'll put chapters in the video so you can jump right ahead. But if you want to know what made me angry, let's head on in. The book opens 20 years in the past, on the day that Utsugi Yuko, a famous spirit medium / psychic / shaman / TV personality, shows up on Mukui Island with a TV crew. Hiro-kun, a local boy, curiously watches them filming something in Mukui Villa. Utsugi complains of a headache and some strong spiritual energy that is crackling inside her brain. The staff ask her if it's really that powerful, to which she agrees it is. Of course, they're talking about the powerful spirit on the island. She mentions that this spirit, an old legend that can be found on Mount Hikita, wants to punish everyone on the island, and the islanders agree with her. Hiro-kun is surprised. He's never heard this legend before. But Utsugi suggests they visit the mountain right now to talk to this vengeful spirit. They must find out why so many islanders have died recently, and how they can stop the Onryo from claiming even more lives. Hiro leaves and spots Sachika by the front counter. She's Utsugi's granddaughter, and while Hiro can't stop thinking about this Hikita Onryo, Sachika mutters under her breath as everyone walks by that it's all fake. It has to be. 20 years later, we're introduced to the main cast. Ohara Sosaku, a 37-year-old who tried to end his life due to harassment at work, but was found by his father just before he could go through with it. He has since come back home from Tokyo to Kyoto to recover. Then there's Amamiya Jun, his childhood friend, and their other friend, Haruo, who wants to do something to help cheer Sosaku up. In the end, the boys agree to take a trip. It'll be good for all of them. Haruo, a big fan of scary stories, has heard a rumor online about a small island called Mukui. Before she died, the famous spirit medium Utsugi Yuko left behind a final prophecy that involved the island. This year, between August 25th and 26th, 6 people will die on Mukui Island, Haruo tells them. So, obviously, why wouldn't they go and check it out for themselves? The men decide to go, but they don't really believe in all that supernatural stuff. On one of the boats over, they meet a young woman who mentions that Sosaku has a powerful guardian angel watching over him. But that's not going to be enough to help them. They shouldn't go to Mukui Island. Seems she knows of the prophecy and is doing the same thing as them. Her name is Utsuro Reiko. She named herself after Utsugi, and she was a big fan of hers. She's also psychic, just like she was. Right. Another woman also rushes onto the final boat to Mukui, but they don't really speak. Once there, the boys are surprised to find out the inn they reserved won't let them stay. An old man, Furuhata, warns the boys not to go near the small mountain tomorrow and stay indoors. If they go outside, the Hikita Onryo will kill them. The same Onryo that caused Utsugi's death. That's why the inn won't let the boys stay. They can't go outside tomorrow and thus they can't provide service. Furuhata then points them to the Aso bed and breakfast. They'll probably take them in. Aso, the owner, is from Tokyo and happily takes them in. But inside, the boys notice something odd. Statues made out of charcoal called kuromushi, or black bugs. They're not all shaped like bugs though. There are all sorts of creatures. Supposedly, these kuromushi protect the island. Everyone has some. During dinner, they meet the other guests also staying at the inn. Reiko, from the boat. Endo Akiko and Shintaro, a mother and son with an oddly close relationship. Ehara Kazumi, the other girl from the boat. And Tachibana Akiji, the local police officer who's just taking shelter from the rain. A massive typhoon is on the way. Being an island directly in its path, they're going to be hit bad right on the night the prophecy is supposed to take place. Intriguing. Everyone discusses why they're there, but Tachibana, the officer, becomes alarmed when Reiko mentions Mount Hikita. He begs them not to go near it, especially tomorrow. Reiko is certain that Utsugi's prophecy is going to come true, but she seems to be the only one. After he leaves, Aso fills them in on a little lore that he's heard. Apparently, Hikita, first name unknown, was a prisoner banished to the island back when it was a prison island. He was smart, intelligent, got on with everyone, and was well respected. But after falling ill, he was banished to the mountain. His illness caused him to bloat up, develop warts, etc., and he ended up looking like a toad. Alone and in pain, he cried on the mountain each night until he finally died. But right before death, he cursed those who banished him, and it said that ever since, anyone who climbs the mountain will suffer the same fate he did. And on some nights, he even comes down from the mountain to inflict suffering upon anyone he finds outside. Aso doesn't believe the story, of course, but the islanders do. That's why they stay inside, and that's why they have the charcoal kuromushi statues. Everyone heads to bed for the night, but the next morning they discover something shocking. Haruo is missing. His friends run outside to look for him and find his body floating in the water. He's dead. Frantic, Sosaku and Jun try to find help from nearby houses, but nobody will come outside. Their fear of the angry ghost outweighs any desire to help. Today is the day the Onryo will descend, after all. But also, it's the day of Utsugi's prophecy. Seems it has begun, and Haruo is the first victim. The boys end up getting Tachibana, who is the only one who will come outside. They drag Haruo out of the water and try to figure out what to do next. Who killed him? Why? Why did he leave the bed and breakfast? Tachibana covers the body and puts a kuromushi on it. He tells them not to touch the body. It's the island's custom. They must wait for a monk or someone from the funeral home to move the body. The Kuromushi will stop the Hikita Onryo from possessing his body, and in the meantime, he'll alert the mainland. Reiko and Kazumi show up and are shocked. Reiko declares the prophecy is true. Kazumi used to be a nurse and tries to calm everyone down, but she finds Haruo's death suspicious. She checks the body, ignoring Tachibana's command, but she doesn't think he drowned. The back of his head has been crushed. He was attacked. By who? Why? Angry, Sosaku runs off to get some answers. Kazumi takes out some prayer beads, and Reiko loses it. Those belong to Utsugi. Yes, it's true. Turns out Kazumi is actually Sachika, the girl from the prologue. Utsugi was her grandmother, and she hid her identity because she didn't want anyone to know why she's there. Like Reiko, she wants to confirm whether the prophecy was real or not, but on the other side of the scale. She thinks her grandmother was a fake, and she wants to prove that. Basically, Sachika hated her grandmother and the life she was forced into, following her around for TV shows and such because she was being raised by her. On that day, they went to the mountain and Utsugi passed out. Her health never recovered, and then 2 years later, she died. But Sachika doesn't think it was a ghost, but she wants to uncover the real reason she died. They head to Tachibana's house and find it full of kuromushi, and also Sosaku's shoes by the entrance. Also, Tachibana is lying dead at the end of the hall. Did Sosaku kill him in his rage? The man himself then calls them and tells them all to leave the island right now. It's too late for him, but they have to go. The prophecy is true. The phone cuts off. A sign at the foot of the mountain outside states, Hikita Mountain Entrance. Danger. Curse. Death. No entry. Do not enter. They're surprised a sign would state a curse, but Jun and Sachika ignore it and head up. On the way, Reiko calls them and says emergency services from the mainland can't come today because of the typhoon. They tell her Tachibana is dead, and then they spot footsteps on the ground. Not one pair, but two. Someone else is here with Sosaku. Before long they find Furuhata, the old man they saw when they first arrived. He's holding Sosaku's collar, and Sosaku doesn't look too good. Furuhata warns them to stay away. This is all the Onryo's doing, and Sachika knows that. She's shocked. How does he know her name? He blames her grandmother for all this, and then runs off. They drag Sosaku back to the bed and breakfast, but he's still unconscious. He's otherwise not injured though. Weird. Reiko claims the prophecy is coming true, and tries to show off her own psychic powers, but Sachika gets angry and points out she's just a sham. Anyone can be psychic with a little trickery, sleight of hand, and prior research, just like her grandmother. She then informs them she's going to go back to the mountain. She wants to figure out what's really going on and prove her grandmother to be a fake. Aso ponders if maybe the villagers killed Haruo for breaking the island's taboo, or whether Tachibana did it to cover for them. Jun thinks the idea is crazy. Nobody would kill for something as simple as climbing a forbidden mountain. As they chat, a group of elderly men show up. There's Tsunaga, who runs the inn they were originally going to stay in, Mukui Villa. The same one Utsugi visited 20 years ago. He asks if they know that Tachibana is dead, and he knows they've been outside, because all of the noise they were making. He asks another man, Iba, if Jun is the one they're after. He's not. Seems they're after Sosaku, thinking he killed Tachibana. But he's unconscious and unable to talk. Jun accuses them of killing Haruo, which they surprisingly don't deny. they're terrified of the curse. As they argue, a siren goes off in the distance. "So it's coming, huh?" the elderly men state before taking their leave. As Jun watches over Sosaku, Sachika sends him a photo. He realizes it's from Mount Hikita. The top is the cloudy sky, and the bottom is nothing but rocks and dirt. No greenery. It's then followed by a short text. "Everyone run! The Onryo is..." He tries calling her but gets no response. Before long, Sachika appears back at the bed and breakfast, angry they're still there. She told them to run. "The Onryo is coming." Apparently the islanders are already evacuating, so Jun grabs the unconscious Sosaku and they all head out too. Everyone is evacuating to the other mountain on the island, the taller one. On the way up, an elderly man collapses in a shallow river, soon joined by an elderly woman. Both turn purple, like they're choking, and then they fall to the ground dead. "It's the Onryo," Sachika says. They can't help them. They must keep going. They reach the top of a mountain which houses a large grey building and a small temple. They're the last to arrive. Everyone else is already inside. After arguing, they're finally allowed in, despite being outsiders, and Sachika declares it's time to get everything in the open. She knows exactly what's going on here, and the islanders do too. Naturally, there are big spoilers from here on out, so if you've made it this far but don't actually want to know the ending, then skip ahead to the next chapter. It turns out that the Hikita Onryo is actually toxic gas. Yeah, you heard that right. After her grandmother died, Sachika did a little digging, and all the symptoms that her grandmother and even the staff with her showed are all common symptoms of breathing in hydrogen sulfide. A little more digging revealed that since the 1980s, companies have been illegally dumping their waste on the island, Mount Hikita in particular, with the islanders' full consent. That waste has been releasing hydrogen sulfide, and on rainy days, this creates toxic fumes. When it's especially rainy and windy, those fumes are blown down to the island below. That's why so many islanders got sick and died. That's why her grandmother died. It wasn't a vengeful ghost. It was toxic fumes. That's why the islanders lock themselves inside during bad weather, like typhoon season, and why they all have charcoal statues. Charcoal is thought to be a filter. But when it gets especially bad, the only way to survive is to get higher than the gas, and the only location they can do that is this mountain. But the Hikita Onryo story that Utsuki herself came up with, well, the islanders were more than happy to confirm everything she said was true. They turned it into a legend to use it as a cover for the toxic fumes. Utsuki, a famous psychic, telling them about an Onryo that resided on the mountain. It was an opportunity too good to pass up. They could continue taking the money for illegal dumping and use the legend to keep people away. Haruo was the first to realize what was going on, and Tachibana killed him to stop the secret from getting out. But who killed Tachibana? The islanders then realize that someone is missing. Furuhata, the old man they've run into several times now. Then, as if on cue, he shows up outside holding a gun. One of the elderly folks calls out his name. Hiro! He shoots through the window, breaking it. Everyone screams. Then, Sachika finally remembers who he is. Hiro, the boy she played with when she came to the island with her grandmother. But he looks so old now. The last 20 years have been pretty rough on him, it seems. Turns out it was Hiro who killed Tachibana. He heard him admitting to Haruo that it was toxic gas killing everyone, and not a vengeful ghost, and something inside him snapped. Next thing he knew, Tachibana was dead, Hiro was covered in blood, and Sosaku was running from him. But he asked Sachika for a favor. Kill him. He has spent his life trying to prevent the Hikita Onryo curse from killing the islanders. He genuinely believed it, ever since he was a child and his parents died to it. He's the one who made all the Kuromushi statues, and that's why the islanders let him act like a leader too. He has nothing without the ghost, and if it doesn't exist, he has no reason to live. And now, on top of that, he's a murderer. Sachika realizes he's a bit unstable, and they manage to get him to calm down long enough to wrestle the gun off him. They lock him inside a small shrine outside and discuss what to do next. Reiko continues insisting it's Utsuki's prophecy at work. Fate, if you will. The islanders tell them a little more about Hiro's sad past and how protecting them from the Onryo gave him a reason to live after his entire family died. So the islanders basically led him along just like everyone else. He was just trying to protect them. At heart, he was a good man. A short while later, they realize that Shintaro, the son from the odd mother and son duo, is missing. They find him unconscious outside, and Hiro missing. When he comes back to, Shintaro reveals he felt bad for him, so he let him free. They fear that he's going to take matters into his own hands, likely at the remains of the school where he lives, but everyone is too exhausted or hurt to go down to stop him. Sachika says she'll go, it's only right. Jun insists on going with her. They take the gun they wrestled off Hiro, but Reiko points out that the gun has 2 bullets left. According to the prophecy, 2 more people are going to die before the night is out. It's a bad omen. They take it anyway. Sachika makes an interesting observation on the way back down the mountain that they really are cursed. Not necessarily in a supernatural way, but rather the words of others have affected them all and brought them to this point. For Sachika, it's her grandmother. Everything she said to her has shaped how she acts and how she thinks. She's influenced by her words, and that has changes how she thinks and acts. She's cursed by them. And it's because of what her grandmother said that 2 more people are potentially going to die soon. When they finally reach the school, they smell rotten eggs in the air again. The rain from the typhoon has brought the toxic gas back. They use the gun to break into the tightly locked up school and then start making their way upstairs, calling Sosaku to let them know they've arrived, and the gunshot they may have heard was just them breaking into the school, nothing else. Back up on the mountain, everyone is safe, fine, and most people are asleep now. Hearing a creaking noise upstairs, they head up and find Hiro hanging inside a classroom on the top floor. Sachika, goodbye, is written in chalk on the blackboard behind him. The room is full of charcoal Kuromushi figures. The 5th person is dead. That means just 1 more. They cut his body down and Sachika cries. She apologizes for not being able to save him, and she fears that her grandmother's prophecy is about to come true. She truly has cursed them all. Next thing they know, it's 4 a.m. and the sun is about to rise. There's maybe an hour left until dawn, and thus an hour left for the last person to die. Around 4:30, Sachika finally makes her move. She thanks Jun and leaves the classroom. Jun gets up to follow her and she reveals she's just going to the toilet. It's okay. He'll go too. And once they get out, they should stay put, and then the 2 of them can leave together. Outside is still dark and dangerous right now. But shortly after she enters the toilets, there's a gunshot. Jun rushes in and finds Sachika bleeding on the ground. There's a bullet wound in her chest, and her stomach has also been cut with a knife. Sachika is barely still alive, but she's rapidly bleeding out. Jun phones the mainland and begs for help, but they're not going to make it in time. The typhoon has mostly moved on, but it's still going to take them time to mobilize. As a final request, Sachika asked Jun to take her rosary beads, the ones she got from her grandmother, and dispose of them for her. Then she passes away. Her grandmother's prophecy came true. 6 people died on Mukui Island on the night of August 25th and before morning on August 26th. Jun answers Sosaku's call and informs him Hiro and Sachika are dead. Sachika was shot and stabbed. Sosaku doesn't understand. How could both happen? And Jun describes it as though someone else did it to her, not that she did it to herself. He tells him to stay put. He'll be there soon. He's currently on the way down with Tsunaga and Iba. Now, here's where the true story is revealed. Again, big spoilers. If you're still here but don't want to know the final plot twist, then skip ahead now, because here we go. The 3 men find Jun still holding Sachika in the school toilets. Jun apologizes for all the trouble he put Sosaku and Haruo through over the years. But it's over now. Jun knows who killed Sachika. She died so that nobody else would. She died so that he wouldn't. And it was his mother that killed her. Yes, Jun's mother, who has been there with them the entire trip. No, you're not missing anything. The book just suddenly drops the bombshell that this entire time, Jun, Sosaku, and Haruo didn't visit the island just as 3 friends, but actually Jun's mother was silently with them. Always. The entire time. Just there in the background apparently. Literally never once mentioned. But the story was written in a way that never specifically states Jun as being alone at any time. So apparently it's cool to just drop that out of nowhere as a big gotcha moment. Anyway, turns out that while the Endo mother and son are a little weird, Jun's mother is even worse. She's the epitome of toxic, just like the gas outside. And ever since he was a child, she has always been heavily involved in his life. Like, he's never alone. She drove his father away and then channeled all of her insane energies into her son instead. Sosaku and Haruo, his childhood friends, got to the point where they basically could ignore her constant presence. But she has always been there, being weird and toxic. And she killed Sachika to fulfill the prophecy. If Sachika died, she would be the 6th and final victim and there would be no chance of her son dying. So she shot her with the gun they left in the classroom. But then she remembered that the prophecy mentioned something about a blade, so she cut her with the knife that they also found in the classroom. She just wanted to protect her son. Jun cries. It's his fault that Sachika is dead. As dawn breaks, helicopters and boats arrive from the mainland, and the police and the rescue workers set about dealing with what happened. They arrest Amamiya Toshie, Jun's elderly mother, and he ignores her as the police drag her away. She screams at him and berates him, just like she used to do to his father. But he laments that he didn't end their weird relationship earlier. If he did, then Sachika would still be alive. In the end, there was no ghost, no curse. The prophecy itself wasn't even real. Not in a supernatural sense anyway. But thanks to human actions, or inactions, it came true. Nothing supernatural occurred on that island, but like Sachika said, in the end, they were all cursed. Cursed by the words and actions of others. So, some mostly spoiler-free thoughts on the book. As I said at the start, I really liked the idea behind this one. An island in the middle of nowhere with a vengeful ghost and a prophecy that claims 6 people are going to die in one night. The night that happens to coincide with the islanders locking themselves indoors so they don't run into the ghost. That's right up my alley. It sounds great. Sadly, that's not what the story turned out to be. But worse than that, for a book that's supposed to be a mystery surrounding a prophecy and a ghost, well, its biggest crime was actually how boring it was. It took me several months to get through this one. I just couldn't bring myself to keep going at several points. And even forcing myself to read just a few pages a day for a while was like pulling teeth. It was just really, really boring. I don't know how you take such an interesting idea and then spend 50 pages of characters discussing the exact same thing over and over while nothing happens. But that's what happens here. The ending also came out of nowhere. Like, literally. One of the general concepts of creating a satisfying twist ending is that you must first lay the seeds throughout the story. You shouldn't be obvious, but it should still be visible what's going to happen, so that when the twist comes, people are hit with, "Oh my god, I had no idea. But in hindsight, it was actually all right there. Oh, brilliant." Like, if you write a murder mystery, and then the murderer turns out to be someone literally never seen or even mentioned before, people get rightfully upset, because there's no way they could have ever guessed who the killer was, right? You spend the entire book looking for clues and wondering if it's this character or that character, and in the end it's someone that didn't exist until that very moment. I don't think there are many people who would argue that's actually good writing. On the contrary, it's one of the worst things you can do. So, when it happens here as well, you're left thinking, wait, what? I was so confused that I had to go and check some Japanese reviews and opinion pieces online just to make sure that I didn't miss something. It seems that no, I didn't. That's just actually what happened. And Japanese readers weren't happy with it either. I've seen some reviews tearing the book to shreds for how poorly it was written. But worst of all is how bad that final twist is. It also seems to be a common thread amongst other reviews I checked that, at first, many didn't even understand the ending. Probably not how you want your book to end. That's how sudden and out of nowhere that twist is, and how poorly constructed it is overall. Straight up, I didn't like it. I don't like to put 100% of my feelings behind, well, that was crap. Because you can often find something good in even the most poorly written works, but no, I didn't like this ending at all. I've seen that some people did, so to each their own. But for me, it killed the entire book. And as I said, another major problem I had with the book was just that it was really boring. Every single character is thoroughly boring. The majority of them spend the book merely reacting to things, and the investigating takes place mostly off-screen. Again, it's poor storytelling. I don't want a character to text another character with the results they've dug up off-screen. I want to see them doing it. I want to uncover the mystery with them, not just be told, "Hey, this is actually what's happening." Active, not passive, I felt like it was also weird and a little disingenuous of the author to have Sachika, the character who does most of the investigating, uncover what's really going on, and then have her spend the next 50 pages saying, "The Onryo is coming. It's the Onryo," when at that point of the story she knows that's not the truth. She straight out lies. Which is already weird for a character whose entire personality is, "My grandmother was a fake. The supernatural doesn't exist." But now she's repeatedly saying, "It's the Onryo," just so we, the readers, don't catch on to what's actually happening yet. Again, this is just poor writing. You can't have your character go against their own personality and blatantly lie just to hide the mystery because you don't want it revealed yet. And no, it's never explained why she says it's the Onryo over and over either. We conveniently ignore that and never mention it again once the truth does finally come out. And I don't even mind that, in the end, most of what's happening in this story has a rational and not a supernatural explanation. I bought the book because of the supernatural implications, and I'm not a big fan of "it was people all along." But that alone isn't enough for me to write a story off if it's still good. But sadly, this one isn't. I found it to be a drag, much of it was poorly written, and that ending was one of the worst I've seen in all my years of reading Japanese horror novels. That being said, should you check it out? You should know my answer to that by now. I don't like to say, no, this is absolute trash, avoid it at all costs, just because I personally didn't like it. While the story and the characters didn't appeal to me, and I found the ending to be especially awful, there are definitely going to be people out there who enjoy this type of story, who find joy in the supernatural versus realism aspects, who can take that sudden ending and, rather than annoying them, it makes them want to dive back in and read it a second time with that new knowledge on board to see events in a different light. That's not me, but it might be you. And if so, you can find the link to the book in the description so you can pick it up for yourself. Language-wise, I don't think it was terribly difficult. Above average, perhaps, with my biggest struggle being to push myself to keep reading because I was bored, rather than the language itself being difficult and pushing me away. And when I was confused, it turned out I wasn't alone. Japanese readers were also confused, so that wasn't a language barrier as such, and more of a story barrier. There is a fair bit of Kansai dialect used by the characters, but if you have even the faintest knowledge of that, it shouldn't trouble you too much. And finally, the writer of this novel, Sawamura Ichi, also wrote Bogiwan ga Kuru, the novel that was adapted into the movie Kuru, which you may know of in English as It Comes. To present a little balance, It Comes was one of my favourite Japanese horror movies in recent years, so it's clear that he can do works that I like as well. It's just that this particular story didn't gel with me. It happens. You don't have to like everything, just like you don't have to hate everything if you usually don't gel with a certain creator. Sometimes they might create something you really like, and might have missed out on if you didn't decide to check it out. And sometimes they might create a dud. At the end of the day, all you can do is check it out and decide for yourself. But what did you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.